Tonight, news that people on the Burin Peninsula have been waiting for. In an exclusive interview with CBC, the new owners of the Fluorspar mine in St. Lawrence talk about what's in store for the operation.
The Premier's recent visit to Dubai has sparked some controversy amongst healthcare workers here in the province. More on that coming up.
It's just so great. Everything looks amazing, so I can see why this captures people's imagination, why people are so interested in it. It's a pretty kind of amazing thing to see.
A shipwreck uncovered in Cape Ray is capturing international attention, and now the recovery is in the community's hands.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. The new owners of the troubled Fluorspar mine in St. Lawrence say they have big plans for the operation, including a possible return to underground mining. Here and Now's Terry Roberts has the latest.
This is the man in charge of restarting the St. Lawrence Fluorspar mine, making it a success where others have failed. And he's full of optimism.
It's a huge opportunity for everybody that's involved. The community will benefit in the long run enormously.
The operation closed 2 years ago after the former operator, Canada Fluorspar, ran out of cash. Nearly 300 jobs evaporated, and dozens of creditors, including the provincial government and many small businesses, lost millions. 8 months ago, handshakes at the town hall when a Singapore-based private equity group called Ahmed Funds paid $25 million for the St. Lawrence mine site. Now, after months of silence, fresh details. The new owners have high hopes for the Fluorspar market, so they're pledging to invest $100 million to bring the mine to full production over the next 3 years.
There's a lot of capacity that closed down in the world, and the market has grown.
A major contract for the open pit mines will be awarded this spring, and Fluorspar production will resume next year. The owners plan to modernize the processing plant, build a new and expensive marine terminal at nearby Blue Beach in order to transport the ore to international markets, and in a surprise twist, return to underground mining for the first time in half a century.
Yes, absolutely. We think there's a lot of extension potential into underground in CFI.
This is a major project we've been waiting for a couple of years now.
Town leaders are cautiously optimistic.
The most important thing for me as a town right now is to get people back to work. People who've been sitting home, either working at jobs to keep their unemployment, to keep themselves going until this mine project starts, they're still waiting. And we look forward to them getting back on track.
There's roughly 20 workers on site. That number is expected to grow later this year, but the workforce will be smaller than historical levels, likely peaking at around 200, says Jacobs.
There's going to be less. We're going to produce more, but there's going to be less.
But those jobs are likely to be much more long-term. The new owners have studied the Fluorspar deposit in St. Lawrence, and they believe they can operate the mine for up to 30 years. The previous estimated lifespan, just 6 years. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, outrage today from one of the province's healthcare unions. It's over Premier Andrew Furey's trip to Dubai. He's there trying to recruit healthcare workers, but the Association of Allied Health Professionals says it's dangerously close to a strike. Here now, Sarah Blackmore has more.
Premier Furey is still in Dubai on what he's calling a healthcare recruitment mission. Meanwhile, at home, the Association of Allied Health Professionals, which represents more than 800 healthcare workers in the province, says they could soon be on strike. The province's healthcare system is in crisis, in part because they need more doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. The government has been trying to lure in workers from other countries like India, Ireland, the UK, and now the United Arab Emirates. In a press release, the government says they've recruited more than 450 nurses and 79 doctors since last April. Shortly after that news release, though, Allied Healthcare sent their own response. It said they were outraged and frustrated beyond measure with the Premier's trip to Dubai and the celebratory tone used in his press release. The group has just walked away from the bargaining table and could be in strike position soon. They said portraying the province as a place where healthcare professionals can thrive is misleading and call Furey's trip another example of how little government values their members. NAPE, another union representing healthcare workers, believes government also has a problem keeping professionals in the province after they've been recruited.
First of all, I think it shows how serious the issue is and the recruitment problem that we have when we have the Premier traveling to recruit. I think it's a positive thing, but on the flip side of that, we have to address, like you say, what we hear from local healthcare workers. What we have to do is how we retain the healthcare workers we have, and then come out a homegrown solution that goes out and talks to people in Newfoundland and Labrador, high school students, and tell them there is a future here in careers such as healthcare. Not enough is done to recognize those that are already in the system and keep them in the system.
The nurses' union shares NAPE's concerns, saying they recruited 400 nurses last year, but we lost 330, and that if the province is losing healthcare professionals at the same rate or faster than we can recruit them, things will not get better.
AAHP says that talks of a strike could be on the horizon, and they're going to share more about their next steps in the coming days. CBC News expects to talk to Premier Furey when he's back in the province later this week. Sarah Blackmore, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the province's medical association also weighed in with a statement. It says it's good the province is looking to recruit doctors internationally, but believes it's just as important for the government of Newfoundland and Labrador to be equally focused on the retention of our current physician workforce. The association says it wants government to ensure that the province is able to attract and retain Memorial Medical School graduates. Well, Newfoundland and Labrador will not ban cell phones in the classrooms, at least not anytime soon. That's according to the province's education department. But as Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports, the teachers' union is calling for clear guidelines on what to do when phones become a problem in the classroom.
This year, Quebec became the second province after Ontario to ban cell phones in classrooms. Newfoundland and Labrador's education department says it's not something that will be happening here anytime soon. In a statement to CBC, it said, at this time, the Department of Education is not having discussions on banning cell phones in schools. The use of cell phones during instructional time at all schools is managed at the discretion of the school and/or teacher, it said.
But bottom line, we know that cell phones are a distraction in classrooms.
Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association President Trent Langdon says cell phones can certainly be disruptive in classrooms, but still the NLTA doesn't support an outright ban.
We've got to teach kids these skills, and because one step away from the school system is the workplace, and it's not like we're going to be able to say, okay, no cell phones right now, but the next day you can have them. So this is about teaching responsibility. I really do believe that. I think it's incumbent on schools, but also incumbent on families to teach responsibility with cell phones.
Langdon says teachers recognize that cell phones can be useful tools in class, but they aren't sure what to do when they become a problem.
We need to make sure that when these phones are inappropriately used, or it's a chronic issue where it's a disruption in class, that there's clear rules and regulations around how to deal with that. Policing of this is very difficult.
Reports from Quebec and Ontario say enforcing cell phone bans have proven to be difficult and time-consuming for school administrators and teachers. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
What's that saying? It's a good day to be a duck. Well, here on the Avalon, it was a good morning to be a duck anyway, and then a messy commute for those heading into work. Many schools and daycares in the metro area were closed, though less traffic on the roads as well. Now, I may have come to work in my raincoat, but I'm definitely heading home in my winter jacket. You can see they're out on the roads. Still wet pavement, though, here in St. John's anyway, or at least outside the CBC. There are some areas that are seeing some of that snow accumulate today. It has definitely been a slow go as far as that is concerned as well. But if we take a look at the reasoning for all of this weather, it's that area of low pressure that has been our weather maker since the weekend. And if we take a closer look, you can see we finally did see that change over to snow. There are still some areas, though, they're just only seeing wet snow at the moment. We've got a few more hours of that. It's starting to pull offshore, but I do think that we're definitely losing our window for any of that substantial accumulation. Snowfall warning still in place, though. That should end over the next couple of hours. We've also got a wind warning in place for Bonavista and the southeastern portion of the Avalon. Otherwise, freezing drizzle advisory from Green Bay, White Bay all the way through to Terra Nova. And we can expect that freezing drizzle to continue for most of the night tonight. Eventually, we will see some flurries in the mix there as well, but we'll talk all about it when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the 2025 Canada Summer Games is just a year and a half away, and thousands of athletes from across the country will arrive in St. John's to compete. There's a lot of work happening to build venues and recruit volunteers, and officials say that work is on time and on budget. Elizabeth Whitten has that story.
It's covered in snow, but construction work continues on this new $40 million track and field complex in the heart of St. John's. It needs to be ready in less than 550 days, when the 2025 Canada Summer Games tee off. This is just one piece of what Mayor Danny Breen says is $75 million worth of Games infrastructure in the works.
You see a lot of work happening on the Canada Games site around the Aqua Arena and the new track and field facility and the new soccer pitch to be built there, as well as the high performance training center that you can see the steel now starting to go up on.
He says the project is on time and so far on budget. The city found out it would be the Games host back in 2021, but work at the site just started this past summer, giving the project a 2-year window to wrap up.
We all would have wanted to start earlier, but you had to remember that there's 3 levels of government here who have to work out the various cost-sharing arrangements. We were able to make this work financially through great cooperation from the federal government and provincial government, and these things take time.
Meanwhile, there's more than just construction to think of. It takes a lot of people to get the Games ready. 2025 Canada Games Host Society CEO Karen Sheriffs says next month they'll launch a merchandise line, and in the summer they'll jumpstart their volunteer campaign.
We will require 5,000 Games time volunteers, which is certainly a significant feat. I think we will have around 31,000 shifts that will need to be filled.
But she's confident the Games are still on schedule.
We are currently very much on track to meet the deadlines. Venue readiness and venue preparation is obviously a key component. This is the platform that all these athletes come to compete in.
The host society will reveal the Games mascot soon. Sheriff says it looks like this will be one of the largest Canada Games ever hosted, and there are new sports being added, like women's baseball. Elizabeth Whitten, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the federal fisheries minister is trying to ease the concerns of some small boat harvesters in Atlantic Canada, including about 40 on Newfoundland's west coast. They've been seeing declining quotas and were hoping a new redfish fishery would help. Fisheries Minister Deanne Laboutier said last week they'd be allowed to catch 25,000 tons. Harvesters say that wouldn't be enough to save them from bankruptcy. Now, Laboutier says that figure was just the beginning, and DFO won't set the total allowable catch until a redfish advisory committee makes recommendations.
I want to be crystal clear. The total allowable catch for redfish this year, the TAC, has not been decided and will not be decided until the redfish advisory committee has been properly consulted and submitted its recommendations to me. The sole purpose of the 25,000 tons floor was to provide predictability and ensure a minimum for the various stakeholders who will ultimately have their say.
A team effort is underway in Cape Ray. Archaeologists, a harbor cleanup crew, and local residents are working together to preserve a shipwreck believed to date back to the 1800s. The Shipwreck Preservation Society is sharing these photos taken last Saturday during a survey on the southwest coast beach. The keel and hull of the ship were first spotted last month just off the shoreline. Crews recently donned their dry suits to collect several samples, including wooden planks and metal fasteners. They're working to document the wreck and determine where it came from. Meanwhile, a drone operator has also captured some stunning visuals from above.
It's a very significant sized vessel just sitting there next to that very white sandy beach. A young man named Gordon Blackmore was actually out hunting, and I guess he was the first to see it. I think there's a mystique when it comes to shipwrecks. From there, it's just sort of exploded in terms of attention being paid to it.
I found out about it on Facebook, actually, so I decided to take my drone and go up and look at it. I was surprised on what was there and how big it was. Flying, I was like just thinking about stuff, like what happened to it and like the people that was on the ship and what went on that day. So it was pretty neat.
Right now, I'd only be speculating, but I've heard different people who are doing some research, whether we're talking 17th century, 18th, 19th. Is it a British warship? What kind of schooner this might be? It's got a real wonder to it. And I think everybody feels the same way. And then what comes next? And looking back in history, it's just mesmerizing.
Oh, that video is mesmerizing, really gives you a sense of how big it is. And as I mentioned, experts confirm the ship is from the 1800s, and now it's a race against time as wind and waves continue battering the ship. The provincial archaeologist says locals hope to eventually recover the boat and put it on display.
There have been people who've been spending like hours a day, like Bert Osmond has been there hours in many days of last week just keeping an eye on it, and I understand that in a couple of cases he was able to prevent things from being removed from the wreck, which is kind of amazing. He certainly deserves credit for that. What's been described to me so far is they would like to pull it up and kind of get what they can get from it and display some of it there in Cape Ray and some in other places along the southwest coast. And I think that I expect that the people on the ground there will do a good job of keeping track of what's going on, and I hope that folks will keep in touch with us.
Tucked amongst these houses on this residential street, behind the giant snowbanks, is a professional recording studio where Phil Churchill is changing the music scene in Corner Brook.
A gentle, easy, comfortable entrance into the world of recording and putting out your own original music.
I'm Colleen Connors, and I'll take you inside his recording studio. That's tomorrow on Here and Now.
Well, we've got at least another 24 hours for the weather to affect us from this area of low pressure. We got a nice big ridge of high pressure up across Labrador. We'll talk all about the forecast and what to expect when I come back.
Well, a messy old day here on the island in St. John's, but Labrador really saw a switch in temperatures today.
It certainly has been really chilly through the overnight period. Let's take a look at what's happening as your overnight lows. Minus 32 in Lab City last night, minus 30 in Churchill Falls and Lab City. Nope. Happy Valley Goose Bay saw a low around minus 20. Very different story than what was happening across the island, only minus single digits as your overnight lows last night. But take a look at what happened through the day today, up to minus 5 in Lab City. That feeling very spring-like for sure, with lots of sunshine. And, you know, typically you should be sitting around minus 10 to about minus 13 across the big land as your daytime high. So definitely warmer than that. We are going to see some of that cold air or some colder air return over the coming days. But for now, we're going to hang on to that. Now, temperatures across the island hovering around 0, even a bit above in St. John's today. 3 degrees in Cape Ray, same thing for Marystown this afternoon. But we do have those temperatures into the minus single digits all along the northeast coast, which is leading to a lot of freezing drizzle with those below 0 temperatures and onshore flow, thanks to that area of low pressure that has been our weather maker since basically Friday at this point. So we are going to see that eventually dissipate as we head into the next couple of days. But for now, the rain did eventually change over to snow. It is very wet snow and it's not really accumulating, but we can expect this over the next couple of hours. It should taper off, but it'll likely taper to some freezing drizzle as we get through the next couple of hours, probably about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. And as you can see with those temperatures still, it took a while to see that temperature drop below 0 today, which is why we saw mainly rain from this system anyway. But we're down to minus 1 in St. John's, wind chill minus 9. It is breezy out there. Feels more like minus 11 in Gander. Same thing for Twillingate. And if you take a look at those winds right now, current winds are gusting anywhere from 60 or 70 to 80 kilometers per hour in Bonavista. So no surprise to see that wind warning in place. Now, as we head through tonight, these winds are generally going to stay up, still gusting anywhere from about 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. Freezing drizzle, the story all along the northeast coast, but we should see the potential for freezing drizzle to end overnight with some flurries pretty much really anywhere in onshore flow. Other than that, it's a quiet night, especially towards the west coast and up across Labrador. Again, you'll likely just see some cloud cover at times, maybe a few flurries to the north, down to minus 23 in Happy Valley Goose Bay tonight. Otherwise, minus single digits, the story across the island. Northern Peninsula, a little cooler at minus 11. But again, those winds will stay up. As we head into tomorrow, freezing drizzle will likely continue. At least patchy freezing drizzle, the potential for a few flurries in the mix as well. But we do still have that onshore flow, and temperatures will be below 0, but we're also looking at those winds in the morning anyway, gusting anywhere from 40 to about 60 kilometers per hour. As the day goes on, though, we should start to see some of that wind let up, especially for the west coast anyway. And then eventually some clearing skies, which will be nice for those of you in the west, especially towards late day and into early Thursday. Your temperatures tomorrow will hover around the 0 degree mark, maybe a little bit above, especially towards the southern areas of the Avalon. That's the better chance of flurries. The better chance of freezing drizzle will be, again, in those northerly winds, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. A little bit of sunshine for the Burin Peninsula. As you head towards central, minus single digits, the story for you, flurries or patchy freezing drizzle. And the best chance of seeing the sun, again, will be in the west, with your winds generally light, anywhere from 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, hovering 0 plus 1 along the south coast, a little bit higher. A little bit further west and north, you'll be seeing your temperatures into the minus single digits. Some sunshine for St. Anthony and southeastern Labrador. Really a very spring-like day in Mary's Harbour. Minus 2 will be your daytime high. And spring-like again across all of the big land, with the chance of a few flurries in the mix there, but overall a fairly nice day. So that's a look at your forecast for tomorrow. We're looking ahead, and it does look like we'll see a bit of a cool down in some areas. We'll talk about that when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, it's been a busy couple of days for shovelers in some parts of the province. Now, it's easy to hurt yourself while out clearing the driveway or sidewalk. So here are some tips from an expert on how to avoid injury.
For your warm-up, you want to do just some basic things. Something basic as just kind of marching on the spot, getting your knees up, getting your heart rate up a bit. You want to do some stuff for the mid-back as well, some rotation. Put your arm across your shoulders, rotate back and forth, right? Maybe 10 times per side. Shoulders, you want to do the circles. So you bring your arms up, small circles, maybe 10 or 20 times in one direction, switch directions. Do the same thing, and then slowly increase the size of the circles, bringing your arms back and forth like this. 5 minutes is all you really need. So shoveling techniques, you want to keep your feet at least shoulder width apart, you know, get them wider as opposed to more narrow. You want to bend with your knees and your hips, right, to decrease don't just bend from the hips. There's a lot more strain on the low back. Brace your core. You know, very important. Tie in the legs and the core, protect your back. You want to avoid twisting, and avoid slumping forward. So when you lean forward, your shoulders come forward and you grab some heavy snow and then you twist to throw it behind you, you know, that's a recipe for disaster. So you want to pivot your feet, point your feet in the direction that you're going to throw the snow, and that can save you a lot of trouble.
Breweries need big spaces because they have big equipment and vats and stuff for the beer.
And this old church in Harbour Grace fit the bill. We return to Conception Bay North tonight to see what the owners of Yellow Belly are brewing.
Healer.
A 130-year-old church in Harbour Grace is getting a major makeover. It's becoming a brewery, a distillery, a spa, and a restaurant. It's the latest venture from St. John's restaurateur Brenda O'Reilly, who set her sights on a more rural area.
So myself and my husband were looking for a place to expand our brewery, Yellow Belly, our brewery, and we wanted it to be in a rural part of the province and like a 1 hour's drive. This church was here and it looked so iconic, and at the time it wasn't for sale, but we inquired, and long story short, we ended up buying the church. Breweries need big spaces because they have big equipment and tall, vats and stuff for the beer. So it needed to be a very spacious building. And we have a big plan for this area. We're building a resort, so we're building a hotel as well, and a brewery, distillery, a spa, a couple of restaurants. So we're building, a resort centered around this iconic building here in the town of Harbour Grace.
How much work has it been?
A lot of work. Since COVID, it seems like more work than it should be. Of course, we bought the cathedral back in 2017 and started to do some work on it in 2019. And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2020, and so that kind of took the project sideways for a while. But we've been working on it nonstop, a little bit at a time. And so a lot of restoration work needed to be done. It's an old building, opened in 1892. And so there was a lot of stone work and water damage to the roof. So most of the roof has been replaced, and a lot of stone has been, redone. And we want this building to be a part of this community and be a good employer and a place for people to gather and celebrate with friends and family. And I think that when people see what we're actually doing with this building, and then they come and enjoy it, come to a wedding or come to a concert or come enjoy a dinner out with friends, I think they will realize that this building will get to last forever. Because it's a spectacular building, and we are planning on telling the story of this church on the walls as well, because the people who built this and put the money into it for all these years to keep it standing the way it is, it's impactful to us and important to us that we tell that story, because it wouldn't be still standing if people didn't care enough about it, and that's what we'd like to see. We'd like it to last for another 200 years.
Well, now we'll take you to Ottawa, where the CEO of the Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board took questions from MPs about proposed changes to the Atlantic Accord. The amendments would expand the accord beyond offshore oil and gas to include the renewable energy sector, in particular offshore wind projects. The Liberals and the NDP have accused the Conservatives of trying to slow the progress of Bill C-49. Here's some of that exchange.
You said that you've met with regulators in Europe and Australia. Globally, are we looking at a revolution in energy with offshore wind?
I think it's fair to say that there is a unmistakable global movement to offshore renewable energy. And certainly in other parts of the world, offshore wind has taken on tremendous momentum. So the energy transition is underway, and it is undeniable. You're absolutely correct.
That the U.S. is now on track to have twice the solar capacity by 2030 than what they had originally forecast just 3 years ago, and to have 43% more wind energy capacity than forecast in 2021. That's an enormous drive. How important is it for us to get in the game now? Because I'm worried, for example, my Conservative colleagues seem to want to block this legislation. If we're sitting at the side of the road as Europe, Australia, the States, other jurisdictions move ahead,
will it impact potential to get investment into Newfoundland and Labrador if we don't move now?
I think, we as the regulator would offer that time is of the essence, that there is a global imperative, both with respect to the energy transition and also energy security. So it is certainly not too soon for Canada to get into the game.
What we're talking about here and changing the mandate of the board, you would be the only vehicle for us to be able to get offshore wind projects off the Atlantic, correct? We couldn't use another form. We couldn't come up with some other mechanism. You are the mechanism that we need to have set up ready to do this. Is that correct?
If it is to be pursued through joint management, our opinion would be that this is the best avenue to reach that objective.
Okay, well then let's get this done so we can get some of those big projects off the ground. Thank you very much.
Based on your experience in dealing with the fishing industry and trying to zig and zag and keep everything together and working and producing, how important is it to have a good framework for fisheries consultation and engagement so that the energy industries and the fishing industry can coincide?
Mr. Chair, I think that member in particular would understand as well or better than anybody around the table that those industries, the petroleum sector and the fishing sector, are absolutely critical to our province and the economy of Canada. So it is absolutely critical to have an effective consultation and engagement framework in which fisheries interests are at the table with a meaningful say and a full voice.
We want this to go smooth. We want this investment. So we don't want to run into the pitfalls and traps that have been there in other jurisdictions. We want investor confidence in the wind energy sector. So how have they worked in those countries, and have they had any conflicts that they've had a tough time ironing out that may have decreased investor confidence in offshore wind?
I think there have been some hiccups in the United States, and I think that's underscored the importance of undertaking those discussions with sensitivity and proactivity. I can't speak to the effect that it may have had on investor confidence. I'm just not sure.
Can we avoid those things here?
Mr. Small, time's up. Thank you, Mr. Tessier.
David Hart is one of the most successful musicians to ever come out of Sheshajit. This week, he's back in the community for a live show with CBC Radio's On the Go. It's focused on community, culture, and educating the next generation of Innu youth. Hart closed out the show with his most well-known song. It's called Traditional Song, and he explained what it's about.
And when I do this part, that means they brought back the hunt and the feast. They had their feast, now they're celebrating, and the elders would get together, and the elderly, I remember my grandmother, she would fix her ears, because then they would have these things around her ears and her beaded hat, and she would be the leader. The woman was always the leading the dance and celebration, and this is a time when they said, it's time to have a good time, because we know we're good for a while, and they go like this, the men will follow along. If she was a single lady, and the men would come up to each other and go, hey, 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 and the other one, they out and kind of push the man, the other man would come up, and whoever was the good hunter, and whoever the woman decides is going to be her next husband, first husband, second husband, because in our traditional ways, my grandmother married twice, her first husband, and the real story behind this song, we come from a starvation. My grandmother's father died because of starvation. And that's why my grandmother always said, feed him, take care of him when people come to your homes. And that's why they celebrated. It's like when it was a big thing. When you have Mokashan caribou, you were not even allowed to chew it outside. I remember my grandfather told in that story, my grandfather knew if somebody walked out of that tent and they chewed on something, the weather would get down. We knew. I believe in it still today. Something I just wanted to share that's never been talked about. That's the reality of being Innu. It's real. We are real. We are who we are, and we are very proud of who we are.
Ottawa is putting nearly $200 million additional dollars into programs that help shelters and low-income renters.
Today, I'm announcing a $99 million top-up to the Canada Housing Benefit. This benefit helps make rent affordable by delivering rent support payments directly to Canadians.
The finance minister also announced another $100 million for programs to help shelters create more spaces for homeless people. The funding is going to 85 communities across the country to help deliver temporary rental assistance and meals. On Sunday, Ottawa announced it's extending the ban on home sales to foreign nationals and companies until 2027. The federal government is now inviting people to sign up for the new dental plan, but there are questions about eligibility. People who already have private insurance cannot apply, but CBC News has heard from seniors who are wondering whether those who drop their private plans are eligible. They say there's no clear answer yet and point out that private insurance premiums can be a burden, especially for seniors. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has issued its preliminary report on a frightening incident involving an Alaska Airlines flight last month. A so-called door plug blew out of the Boeing 737 MAX 9 jet shortly after takeoff. The plane was about 5,000 meters up and was able to make a safe emergency landing. The safety report says at least 3 bolts meant to hold the door plug in place were missing. Without those bolts, the plug was able to move and break free from the aircraft. And help is on the way for Nova Scotia following a historic snowstorm. As much as 150 centimeters was reported to have come down in some parts of Cape Breton. Schools, offices, and many businesses are closed today. The CBC's Heather Gillis has more on how parts of Atlantic Canada are cleaning up.
In Sydney, Nova Scotia, the hardest hit area, Myrna Murphy is buried deep. She estimates there's snow nearly 2 meters high in her driveway. The dig out isn't close to finished.
Now the problem is it's heavy and it's becoming solid. I have no idea of how we'll get rid of this. I think it's the worst we've ever had. I remember growing up, we'd have this over the course of a winter, but not in one storm.
The federal government is answering Nova Scotia's request for help, sending Parks Canada snow clearing equipment and personnel, and Coast Guard choppers for critical supplies and the evacuation of people isolated and at risk. Help is coming from neighboring New Brunswick and PEI too. Roads in the region still clogged with snow, but now partially passable thanks to snowplows and heavy equipment like here in Charlottetown. They're working around the clock to clean up, according to the mayor.
And the priority is for emergency services, police, fire, ambulances, to get to any spot they have to in case of emergencies.
Speaking of emergency responders on PEI, well, they've been busy too.
They've answered between 200 and 300 calls from the public, and the vast majority of these are all in concerning vehicles getting stuck and people trying to navigate through this weather.
Plow operator Tyler McQuarrie says he's ready for a rest.
It's been hard, long hours and a lot of snow coming down and over 64 centimeters, I was told.
While for this boy, with school closed for 2 days now, it's playtime here on this mountain in his front yard.
It's a bit scary. It's very high.
This system hasn't spared Newfoundland and Labrador either, dumping 43 centimeters on Wreck House on Newfoundland's west coast since this weekend. Now, this weather started as rain in St. John's this morning and transitioned over to snow, closing down government offices, schools, and some daycares. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the nominations are out for this year's Juno Awards. They were announced at the CBC Broadcast Centre in Toronto.
The final nominees for this year's Juno Awards.
Montreal singer Charlotte Cardin leads the way with 6 nominations. Toronto's Daniel Caesar has 5. Both are nominated for Best Artist, Best Album, and Best Single. And while newer performers nominated, veteran acts are also on the list, and that includes Nickelback, the Arkells, and Shania Twain. The Juno Awards show is set for March 24th.
40 years after the Ocean Ranger inquiry, artifacts and archival material sit in Ottawa. What will become of these pieces of the past? Watch Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
Time for a look at the long range, and we were just chatting about what's coming this week, and Ash, you were saying that it's a little bit of a break, considering the weather that just was, and
it'll be nice
quieter.
It'll be nice to say goodbye to this low. It has not been fun to forecast for, let's just say that. But yeah, it'll be quiet, at least for Thursday into Friday. Let's just take a look at what's going on. Now, we're still likely going to see the potential for some freezing drizzle or flurries for the Avalon mainly. But we should see some clearing skies through central, west coast, some cloud cover. But for the most part, like I said, not a whole lot to talk about. Maybe some flurries towards the coast of Labrador as well as we head into the afternoon hours, and then basically up across Labrador. That's about it. Our temperatures are going to stay into the minus single digits and dipping to where right around normal up across Nain at about minus 12. But the temperatures across the island will hover around the minus single digits, and again some sunshine through central, west coast and along southwestern portion of the island as well, which will be lovely. Maybe a few flurries lingering in onshore flow for really all along the northeast coast. Now, pretty much the same thing into Thursday night into Friday morning. That onshore flow will continue. Better chance of seeing some light snow for western portions of Labrador and then towards the north coast as well. But for the most part, winds will be generally light, and we could actually see some more sunshine across the island, which will be a nice break. So temperatures will be really not moving a whole lot. We might see temperatures above zero by a degree or two further east, around +1 in St. John's, +2 in Marystown, otherwise hovering near or just below zero for the rest of the island. And again, we're looking at our winds generally staying light. Now, the temperatures over the next couple of days, especially in the east, really aren't moving a whole lot. Going to keep that potential for freezing drizzle in there right through Friday morning. And then temperatures will come up above zero. So generally some sunshine. Now, Saturday, Sunday, still looking a bit gray at this point. Temperatures around -1 or -2, but I don't see anything in the way of accumulation, at least significant accumulation. And for central Newfoundland, just some flurries on Saturday. The rest of the weekend looking fairly quiet, anywhere from -1 to -2. And our temperatures, as you look towards western Newfoundland, are going to be, again, a little bit above where we should be sitting. Our overnight lows just in the minus single digits as well. So a few flurries in the mix for you on Sunday. Now, your overnight lows up across Labrador dipping into the minus double digits, but you're still going to be well above seasonable pretty much right through next week, with some chance of flurries moving in both Saturday and Sunday. And then western Labrador, you're looking at that potential for some light snow on Saturday, and then just flurries for your Sunday. But yeah, hovering around the 0 degree mark, certainly feeling very spring-like for February. Now this photo, let's just say, this is indicative of spring, isn't it though? This is some glitter, as we call it, some freezing drizzle on the trees in Gander. Boy, have you been seeing quite a bit of freezing drizzle. David shared this lovely shot with us.
Yeah,
trees
look how
very
heavy it looks.
Yeah. I like the dramaticness of it.
I do
of it, I guess I should say. If you have any photos that you would like to share with us, you can send them to my Facebook page or email them. The best place is to do that at nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, very pretty, David. Thank you. I wonder how icy it's going to be out there now with the rain earlier.
It's take your time going home.
Take your time. And I guess if you do have any shoveling.
Yeah.
But I guess there's not much snow came down, so
yeah. No, and it's ending now, so that's good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too, for sure. Okay, well that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.